Hi, this is Carrie Hummingbird, and this is Soul Nectar show that talks about the indescribable, the unknowable, that connection to essence, that deeper place within us that we find on our journey through life. And that once we find it, we have a lot more clarity about why we're here, what we're here to do. And I always love to tell stories. I love to invite guests on the show who have really powerful, beautiful stories to share that can inspire us and give us a little sense of our own connection to essence. And today I'm really excited to have Dr. Robert Puff with us. He is an internationally recognized clinical psychologist, professional speaker to business and organizations, and host of the top-ranking iTunes Happiness podcast. He has authored 13 books on a variety of topics, including relationships, anger management, holistic healing, and happiness. He is regularly sought by the media for his expertise on a variety of healthy living issues and has been quoted in the media over 1,000 times. The Happiness Podcast is one of the top health and self-help podcasts on iTunes and focuses on ways for all of us to find happiness. For years, Dr. Puff has been a regular blogger for Psychology Today. So, as my audience knows, I've, super interest in all things psychology. Spent about half of my life or more on a psychotherapist's couch trying to figure out what was wrong with me, fix me. My family was just like hoping I could fix me. And, and I found a different way. I found a different path that worked for me through subconscious healing. And then as soon as I started healing all those, at the energetic level, I like to call the energetic level, and at the emotional level and this deep subconscious level, like all of a sudden, all those years of psychotherapy started paying off and it started making sense. I was like, all right, I have a PhD in this. So I love people that deal with the mind and deal with, how do we navigate life with this thing that we've got going on up here, this brain thing. It likes to cause some issues. So what I want to do now, though, to start is really hear from you about Robert, how did you get started on this path? Like, how did you find that connection to that which is bigger than you, that you knew, like, okay, this is my life's work, this happiness, this is what I want to talk about?
Yeah, it's a long path, as I'm sure most of the guests are. But for me, it started truly as a very young child. I came out asking questions. My mom and dad used to say the second they'd have one question answered, I'd have another one on the tip of my tongue ready to go. And with that, and the combination of that, and one other thing that I think, God, the universe gave me was the ability to be honest, meaning that when people gave me the answer, I would look at their life and say, okay, how's it working for them? Are they doing what they're doing, or are they just saying this will work? And the combination of that, I learned that a lot of things that people have good theories about really don't really work in practicality, or they weren't practicing them. So I first started off as I got my PhD in psychology, and then I studied really all the religions of the world, and then really dove into spirituality, and I just kept seeking and seeking and seeking. And along the way, I discovered things that really worked well. And I've just implemented them, and it's been a really long journey. And now, I find that they're not just things that I share. They're really things that I implement in my personal life. It's more in my story. A lot of what I share is like, okay, this is what I find works for me. Why don't you try it out and see if it works for you? And because if it won't work for me, so many people. You're in this field, but I talk to so many people that are in this field, and they'll say, it's a great idea. I don't do it, but it's a great idea. And I'm a little bit reverse to that. It's more like, for me, I'm going to do these things that I find work no matter what. I was actually at yoga this morning, and this woman named Ann, her husband, never comes anymore. And I said, he should come. And he said, oh, he's always busy. I said, well, one of the things I learned in life was, first take care of myself and then do everything else. That's been my motto. Like, first take care of myself and then do everything else. And I found that really worked well versus I'm going to achieve things, put my life on hold, and then I'll take care of myself. And I think that one really backfires. So I think once you discover what those things are, though, you have to do them, So I'm sure we'll talk more about them that I've discovered. But you can't just say you're going to do them. You have to do them. And I often compare it to, like, eating or being in physical shape. I think everyone knows, eat, organic fruits and vegetables, and, exercise on a regular basis. Those are really good for us. But, people say, well, I don't have time for it, or it's hard to do, but they work, and they're not that hard, but they do work. And if you do them, you get really good results. I think in the spiritual world and happiness world, it's the same thing. It's not hard to do in the sense of it's not complicated, but you do have to do them. If we don't do them, then life kind of crashes and burns. And along the way, I was struggling with things that I needed to work through, for my childhood issues, things like that. And psychology, gave me some ideas, but, a lot of it didn't work, to be honest, what I found. And then I tried the success thing, like, well, if I'm successful, then aren't successful people happy? And that one definitely didn't work. And then I, really delved into different parts of spirituality, and I found some deep things really work. Like one of them is meditation. I've been meditating for 30 years now, and I meditate an hour and a half every day, period. I love meditation. I go very, very deep with it. I go on retreat a lot. I go pretty often, getting away, just being still for a week, for a weekend. I go often. So there's just things I have in place. And I find if I do those, life goes well. If I don't do those, that doesn't go well. And I hope I'm going on and on and on here. I hope that's okay. But like one of the things I was thinking about this morning when I was working out, how, I really keep what coming in. To me, mental thoughts are like eating. Whatever you expose yourself to affects you. And so for me, because I've gotten kind of so clean inside physically and mentally, I really get affected by things. And so for me, even watching, I have kids, like are now like 16 and 13, sometimes they want to go to movies, and I'll go with them once in a while, of course. But I always feel the effects of the movie afterwards. Like, I kind of got to work into my system.
It's amazing to me how people don't feel it. I just went to see a movie, and I won't say the name of it, but it was a movie that, is sort of billed as good for teenagers. Mm-hmm. And it had some things in it that I thought, this is really gross. Like, how can we even just normalize this in a movie? How can we normalize that people would even behave this way to each other? But I think to me, it's part of that, is part of our culture being disconnected from our real feelings. And you were mentioning about the early childhood abuse, I put the word abuse in there, but you were talking about the early childhood stuff. And I remember when I went away to school, my first school that finally I started getting some traction in my healing was with Alberto Vialdo. And he said, everybody in this room has mommy daddy issues. And the thing is, you chose your parents as a soul. And that moment for me was pivotal, because I went, oh, wow, I chose my parent. I chose this. Okay. Why did I choose that? That was the next question. Mm-hmm. But I think we spend a lot of time trying to heal these mental structures or these emotions in the body or these thoughts that keep recurring that I think stem from that time. And in the meantime, we're sort of just numb, to it at some point, because we don't want to feel that. But you along the way decided, I need to go and explore this. Like I want to explore it. I want to heal. So tell us a little bit about that journey. What was that for you?
Well, like I said, when I got into my PhD program, they really recommended therapy. And I had come from a fairly observable, functional childhood. People would say, well, it seems like it's, for your parents were together till they died, or till my mom died. And it seemed fairly normal. I was a very good student and everything else. But there definitely were holes in it. So when I got into therapy, because they recommended that, I discovered, there's a lot to heal here. And I remember once, I don't share the story very often, but when I started therapy, she was describing, well, what does your life feel like? And I said, it feels like this, mile-high wall that I can't see the end to, and somehow I have to get over it. I said, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do that. So I worked with her. She was a very good therapist. And then one day I walked in, and I kind of got it. I'll explain to you kind of how I got it. But all of a sudden I said, you know what happened? I saw a crack along the bottom of that mile-high wall, and the whole wall came down. I just walked across. So I do think we can heal, but healing is the first step of it. So kind of along the way, what I've learned is more of this. I like the analogy of, think of ourselves, we're born as a 5,000-gallon acrylic tank of water, and we are crystal clear. But what happens is gunk starts coming in, right? Gunk. Stuff comes coming in. And, and the cloudier it gets, it can get pretty gunky, but the cloudier it gets, the darker it gets. So then when you say, like, you and I work, when people go to movies, because it's so gunky, they don't even notice the darkness of the movie, right? Or the darkness of the conversation. But what happens is as you get on the health path, it's like eating again. You start bringing in good thoughts. You start, like listening to your podcast, start kind of really steeping yourself in goodness, so that there's like a hole coming into this tank, there's a hole going out. And then now, instead of letting darkness come in, you let clear water comes in. And with time, that acrylic tank gets clear again. And so what happens is, now that you're clear, like you and I, like when we go to movies, we can really feel it. Where other people are numb to it because they're dark inside, but because we're clearer, we really feel that. So it's really, and so it is something you have to maintain. You don't just get healthy and then you're fine. You have to maintain it. Again, think of physical. You don't just get in physical great shape and then, not do anything. You have to keep doing it. And I think in the spiritual and the emotional world, people say, well, now that I've arrived, I'm going to dive into my work or give back. And they really lose the self-care. And you have to do
self-care is essential. I actually, I did a lot of programs, spiritual programs, after I finally realized I needed a lot of deep healing. I got myself in a low point, and my life was chaotic, and I was acting out and hurting everybody around me, my family. And I finally said, okay, I've been trying to heal through psychotherapy, and I've been trying to heal through these methods. It's clearly not working for me. So I need to find another solution. I need to find something. And I went on that path and I started healing. And the thing that I did, I think, was really the most instrumental, or got me the most traction, was a ritual. It was like a daily, bookends. It's so simple. Like they say, have your bookends every day, open your day and do the prayer, and then close your night and do prayer, or, whatever it is that you do. But to have those bookends creates a structure to your day that then helps you to feel this sense of security, normalcy, moving forward, and it gives you that space to rest into. That gives you that sense that, okay, everything's going to be okay. There's a sense to all this stuff. And it's when I don't do that I start to feel the wobble. I feel more wobbly. I feel more like, ooh, so like you said, I like that visual of the sort of ink is seeping back into my tank, and I got to clean it out, because if I don't clean it out, I think though that the stuff that's seeping in is difficult things. It's like layers of emotional stuff, or you're with your partner and something gets triggered, and now you're feeling this sort of resonance of some older thing that hurt you, and it's so imperceptible. What is that? And we want to kind of close it off. We want to kind of go, oof, I don't want that. I want to pretend that's not there, shove it down, hide it. But the answer is really to open it up, to really let it, to just be so vulnerable and just, here's my heart.
Right.
Because that's how it keeps flowing. We can't brace against the pain, I guess is what I'm saying. We got to go into the pain.
Right. Yeah. And I think a couple of things that I've learned too along the way. One is I've traveled the world just trying to meet the most, kind of what I feel, the most healthiest people I can meet. And two things I found when I've met them, and I've met some pretty amazing people. One is I always ask them this question: how did you get there? And I always get the same response: through pain. They had a lot of things to work through, suffering. And then I observe them. I say, well, how are they maintaining their incredible spiritual and emotional health? And it's through what you described. They tend to be very ritualistic. I mean, they tend to have a very much of a routine day. They do those things no matter what, and their lives are fairly simple, and they just keep doing those things on a regular basis. So I do think there is a sense of just to get, again, I so often like to compare it to physical. To get in physical shape, we have to do certain things. To maintain physical shape, we have to keep doing those things. And knowledge isn't the answer. Because think about the Olympics. You can take a gold medalist gymnast, and she can be in amazing shape, but her coach could be a 300-pound couch potato. He has the knowledge, or she has the knowledge, but not be able to do it themselves. I think we're here to do it ourselves. I think it's great that we teach other people, but it's more important. What's more important that we live well every day. And we live well every day by kind of the final thing that kind of put the nail in the coffin for me was I realized, okay, how do I need to live my life? And I discovered that, it's how I end my podcast. Every podcast I end it the same way. I learned that, okay, am I doing the things that I want to do to keep improving, to growing, and things that I enjoy in life and things that I need to work on? And the answer is yes, and there's still things to work on. Then I say, okay, is there anything I need to do about them right now? Is there anything I can do about them right now? And if the answer is no, then I'm just content. I'm just content with what they are. So how I end my podcast is accept what is, love what is. So we so often fight what is, and a lot of life is saying, okay, of course we're going to do things to make it better, but we don't have that much control over things. So if right now, for example, if someone listening is in a horrible marriage, or they hate their job, or they are struggling with anxiety, it's like the way to work through that is do things to make it better, of course. But if right now, we can't do anything to make it better, then turn around and smell the roses. Turn around and be present with something beautiful, because there's always something beautiful we can be with. And when we get that, there's just a lot less struggle in life.
I love that. And I'm going to bring something up now that I'm feeling called. I wasn't sure I was going to bring it up, but I'm feeling called to. And because there's a really powerful message I want to deliver, which is no matter what you think you're arguing with your loved ones over, whatever you think, the wrong, the injustice, the thing I can't forgive, whatever that is, to realize that, it's really possible that you have some smudgy glasses on,
Mm-hmm.
and that when that person's no longer there, you will be wishing that you had taken those glasses off to see them clearly and see the love. And so I'm going to do this without totally losing my shit. But what I want to say is this: when you can live your life from happiness, when you can live your life from no regrets, when you can live your life from the love in your heart, and you can forgive and move forward with your loved ones, you can get to the place that I'm at this moment, because my dad passed away last week.
Wow.
And I have no regrets.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was able to forgive. My dad was forgiving me. I was able to forgive him. And every time I saw him, I told him, oh, how much I love you. I love you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I could feel him with me, because my channel's clear, like you were talking about, because I don't have a lot of smudgy stuff in my glass, because my channel is clear. I have a clear connection. I was able to lie by his bedside last week, and he was in the hospital, and I was able to dream with him. And we did a life review in my dream. Like, he snuggled me up like I was a little kid. And remember when I read you bedtime stories, and remember when I, tossed you in the pool when you were a little kid, and remember this Christmas, and all this stuff I had actually forgotten. And he was reminding me, because my vessel was so clear, I could receive his consciousness. And so that's the beauty of being clear with yourself, is that you can know that your loved ones are always there. You can talk to them, you can hear them, and you can have faith and trust. And that is the beautiful thing of doing your personal work.
Yeah, I so agree. And thank you for sharing that. It's beautiful. And you really get down to what I've discovered myself and other people, is you really see unity in everything, that we all actually are one. The Tibetans have this saying that I like. They say, that everyone's been your father, your brother, your sister in some previous life. So when you see that, when you go to the mall, or if you're, going home for Christmas or the holidays, Thanksgiving, that realize that, the person at the airport and the person that you're spending the time with, they all matter, and they're all important, and that we learn to love them all. And when they do things that harm us, we realize they're doing those things because they're in pain. We don't necessarily need to take that pain on. So
they're doing that because they're filled up with that stuff.
Yeah,
gunk.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's not them doing that.
No, it's all conditioning. It's very simple. They're conditioned to be that way. If they change the conditioning, they change. So right now, the listeners listening to this podcast are literally changing their conditioning. If they accept what you and I are talking about, they'll begin to change. They'll begin to see the world differently. And that seeing the world differently will have them respond differently to the world. So,
well, and I'm going to push the button a little harder right now for everyone in our audience. And I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to look in your heart and to say, who do I need to call today to say, I love you? The water's under the bridge. It doesn't matter what it was. I forgive you. I want you in my life. It's more important you're here now. I can hug you because I won't be able to hug you later. So I'm going to push it in because it needs to be pushed in. it's time to forgive. All these things that we think were such great injustices. When we take off our smudgy glasses, we can see it was a call. It was like an invitation to open your heart even wider and bigger with understanding, compassion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, too, again, for those of you who don't, I think you heard a little bit about me, but I've done private practice for 30 years, working with, like I say, a lot of people over 30 years, as you can imagine. And you begin to see how, when people do cause other people pain, it is from their pain, and it's from their pain, it's from their previous pain. So at some point we have to decide we need to stop that. And we're taking that on. People can't hurt us emotionally. I mean, they can hurt us physically, but they can't hurt us emotionally unless we let them. And we let them by hanging on to the anger. We let them by hanging on to the hurt. It isn't that I'm in any way encouraging that we don't feel it. Of course we feel it, but we do need to let it go. And what I've discovered is healing doesn't take that long, but we can hang on to resentments for a lifetime, or perhaps many lifetimes.
Many lifetimes.
so it is at some point you have to say, okay, I'm done with this. I'm done with hanging on to this hate, this anger, and I'm going to let it go. I'm going to start living my life, because my anger, who it's hurting the most is me. It's not hurting other people. Who's my, even my sadness, my regrets hurting the most. If we've been, I've heard every story in the world. If we've gone through rape, child molestation, whatever, fill in the blank. Those events happen. Of course, work towards healing them, but mostly work towards living. Say, I'm not going to let that event keep hurting me. I'm going to live my life beautifully, no matter what. Nothing can hold me back. Nothing can keep me held down except me. If I'm suffering, the person I have to look at is me. And what am I doing to reinforce the suffering? I know the pain was there, and they have to deal with their karma that they did. But what I need to do is make sure I'm not passing it on. But number two, also heal myself and live my life well today, no matter what.
I love that. My my dad was with me since I was 6, and I met him first, on the steps of an apartment complex we were living in, and later that night he was at a divorce party for some neighbors, and then my mom walked in with me, so he made the connection, like, oh, redhead mom, okay, like I know you, Right. And it was instant love, and they've been together ever since. And the thing about my dad is that he's so compassionate. Like, I'm actually going to write a book collecting all of my dad's truisms, because there's just so profound. Like, it's going to be like the Tao of Tom Lonsby, because I mean, everybody he touched, like every person he met, everybody he touched, that, I mean, people that hardly knew him, when they found out this week, they started bursting into tears. I mean, he's just that kind of person. And I got to have him as my dad,
Wow. That's great. Yeah.
So I like to tell people, like, I had kind of a crappy time, 0 to 5, but then I got my dad. I got like the best dad ever, like seriously. But as my dad was passing, I was like, Dad, I'm promising you from the bottom of my heart that I'm going to be unconditionally loving to my mom. Because of course my mom and I have had lots of challenges. We're very fiery. We both are. And, and my dad would always say, you guys are just like each other. You're just like, my mom's like, I'm not like her, So it's been really interesting for me, like stepping into that, because my dad was showing me the next night. He's like, you need to remember who you really are, because who you really are is not this body.
Right. Wow.
And when you can really remember who you really are, you can love her, because you came in to teach her. You came in to help her, just like she came in to teach you. So, I love how spirit always sets it up. For me, I call it spirit, but always sets it up. I do healings with people. I haven't done so many lately, but I do more healings. And I find that it's always whatever I needed to work on in my life, that person came in, and then they needed to work on that same thing. And maybe I was a few steps ahead, but I needed to go deeper. And we're working on it together, really. It's like, it's always that way. And in families, it's always that way. When you have the family members in your life, they're all there to love you. They're all there to help you fill in the gaps of the things that you need to work on and the things that they need to work on. So I think if we can remember who we are, step into that bigger place, we can do that.
Yeah, and what you said is really poignant too, because that's what I believe at the deep level, that every listener right now is You may not feel it because, and I'll explain to you why, but everyone listening right now, the universe, God, spirit, whatever you want to call it, is reaching out to making your life better. But what can happen is we don't have to listen. Like you had a pretty awesome, dad. And, I think, the universe is incredibly awesome, always reaching out to us, always trying to touch us. But we don't have to wake up to that. There's a story I like. There's a guy who goes to the military, and he's at boot camp, and he has to get up at 4:00 in the morning. And the universe is kind of like that bugle going off in the morning, waking him up. And the bugle goes off, and he doesn't wake up. So then his bunkmate comes by and shakes him, and he still doesn't wake up. Then they pull off his blankets. He still doesn't wake up. And then they pour water on him. He still doesn't wake up. And then they drop him on the floor. They still don't wake up. At some point, he said, well, that's ridiculous. How would he not do that? We do that through numbing. What we do is, life is hard. We don't like our life. And so what we do, we come home and have maybe a glass of wine. Now it's 2 glasses of wine. Now it's 4 glasses of wine. We start taking, psychotropic medication. We start turning to workaholism, sexualism. We turn towards addictions not to feel. So this is a path of feeling, like you said earlier. We do have to feel things. And then ultimately, the universe will ultimately guide us in such a beautiful way, as I know you've seen your work and I've seen my work. But we have to participate in that dance. It's always reaching out to us, but we can say no to it. That's how it works.
You have free choice. You can say no.
Yeah. And a lot of people, unfortunately, do. Numbing ourselves is the way to say no. So,
well, it's what I was saying earlier. It's like you're trying to keep, like, this is painful and I don't want to feel it. So I'm just, no. And I think a lot of people, when they see happiness podcasts or whatever, they think, oh, good, I'm going to be happy all the time. Mm-hmm. No, it's not exactly that way. It's like, you've got to feel all of it if you want to feel any of it. And I was on those medications. I was on those psychotropic medications for 13 years after the birth of my first son, because I'd been in therapy since I was, 1.5, it's early childhood stuff. And right after I had my first child, it all kind of blew up in my face. Like, I think that happens to a lot of parents. Like, you have your first child and then it just goes like, here's your stuff, you're supposed to work on this. Dang, that was hard. And I was in a challenging relationship. We were doing our best. We were going to therapy. We were doing our best, but we both had so much childhood wounding that it was really hard for us to come together for each other, because you can't fill somebody else's cup if your cup is empty, and right. We kept trying to pour empty cups into each other's cups, and, so I went on those pills, and when I went on the pills, I just kind of went on them, get me through it. I just need to cope with this life. I need to cope so that I can be a good person and I don't get angry at my kids, or I don't get upset, or just let me cope with it and get through. And I did that for 13 years. And, while I'm coping with it, I'm still having my wine, I'm drinking my wine, and I'm just, I'm acting whatever way, I'm squirting out the edges, because really what I needed to do was get some help spiritually. I needed help spiritually. That's what I needed. And I think that's what a lot of people need, but it's hard to tell people that, because it's one of those delicate, it's the sacred. It's like the sacred within you. Mm-hmm. And, how do you guide somebody to the sacred within them and say, your sacred is talking to you. It's knocking at the door,
Well, it's interesting. My happiness podcast, I keep it in pretty layperson's terms, but your audience, if any of them ever want to listen to it, you'll definitely see oh, he's talking about this and this, and we know what he's talking about, but I keep it really in story form, really simple, so people will hear it. And but one of the things I like to share is this audience I can get away with a little bit more. I don't know if my audience is quite as willing to hear it, but it has good and bad. If we're suffering, it's actually our fault. But the cure is also within our hands. So when we get that pain, I'm getting that people hurt us and they do horrible things to it. Of course, 30 years I've seen lots of pain, but the suffering is that story that we create about the pain. It's okay, we hurt our hand, it's one thing, but to say, why did my hand get hurt? That shouldn't happen. This isn't fair. All those things, all the stories we create that cause suffering. So once we realize that, oh, I'm suffering not because of what's happening, I'm suffering because what I'm doing in here. And when we begin to change that, guess what? The suffering begins to dissipate and we start getting better. And so there's a lot of freedom in this, but it is work. And it is, the truth of it is, it's so much easier to come home and, have that glass of wine, it is easier. So ponder that.
It was pretty easy to project it all on my husband, you know.
Yeah,
Like,
it
he's a
is.
bastard. It's all his fault. Look how critical he is. It's horrible.
Mhm.
He's making me feel bad about myself.
Mhm.
The truth is that no one can make you feel bad about yourself. You make yourself feel bad. So, like, I'll give the example of my dad. You know, his funeral his death last week, and we're in the middle of you know, a big transition for my mom. She's 42 years with this man every single day, all the time, and it's a big transition.
Huge.
And so, you know, as a family, you know, this week also is my son's 15th birthday.
Wow.
This week also was, you know, my cousin's wedding.
Really?
And half of my family. And here's how I looked at it. I said, my dad is so compassionately wonderful that when he chose to go, he made sure the whole family was together, that they had each other.
Huh.
We all had each other. I was supposed to be at retreat this week. I was supposed to be at retreat last week, all week long. So I had the whole week off my calendar. Well, isn't that convenient? Because my calendar is usually really full, you know? So my dad made sure I didn't have anything going on, you know?
Right.
I mean, that's a story I like to tell myself. And it feels like truth to me that he's, you know, he's this wise old soul. And he thought my family's going to need each other when I go because I'm the fabric. So you can tell a lot of stories. I could equally have told, you know, this isn't fair. And I could be wallowing in self-pity and dragging myself down and dragging my mom down.
People do.
And making it worse.
Yeah, lots and lots of people do. That's unfortunately, that's where you want to look at. And it's not to judge yourself. It's just saying, am I doing anything that's contributing to my suffering right now? What am I doing in my head? And the biggest one is just, you know, the things we struggle with are like, it's not fair. Actually, my podcast I did yesterday will come out in a couple of weeks. It's about, you know, life isn't, you know, needing life to be fair causes us suffering. You know, having things go a certain way causes us suffering. When we say, okay, this is the way it went. How do I get to where I get it? This is part of my journey. I'm going to accept it. And ultimately, I'm going to love, not the suffering, but I'm going to love my life, even with this element there. I'm going to learn to, you know, because we're all going to face what, you know, you face, Carrie. We're all going to lose our parents. I lost my mom. My dad is, you know, getting older now. So that's something we're all going to go through. Sometimes we're going to lose our own health as we get older. We're going to lose our marriages. We're going to lose, sometimes we even lose our kids, jobs. So many things happen. But we realize that is what life is. If we can roll with that versus fighting life, when we fight life, we do suffer. When we say, okay, this is what you've given me. I'm going to make this work. I'm going to make this into something beautiful. You know, kind of like the butterflies behind you. You know, it's like, everyone knows the story. Where do they come from? They're chrysalis. Yet they turn into something beautiful. We can turn anything into something beautiful. And isn't it curious, again, that the people that I've met that I would truly argue are the most advanced souls I've met on this planet, every single one of them, pretty much hand down, says they got there through suffering. They got there through the pain they went through, and that encouraged them to say, I need to work on this. Now, of course, there's millions of people that say, I'm going to numb this. I'm not going to work on this. But it is an opportunity for all of us to grow. And usually the ones that life is kind of okay, no big tragedies happen, they usually are the ones that are just, to be honest, fairly mediocre in their lives. Most people probably listen to this podcast have had a lot of things happen to them. That's why they're listening. So it is a potential for growth.
It is. And, you know, I tell people this part about the caterpillar story, and a lot of people don't know this part. I think they maybe learned this part at some point, but then they're like, I don't want to know that part, which is that the caterpillar completely disintegrates.
Right.
There's nothing left of the caterpillar.
Right.
There is soup inside the cocoon. Okay. Like, think how uncomfortable that is. And every time I go through a spiritual transformation like this, I think, wow, I must be becoming a really big butterfly right now.
That's great.
But, you know, you disintegrate, and then out of that soup forms the butterfly.
Right.
And so you gotta take the journey. If you don't take the journey, you're just like parts of a caterpillar stuck in a cocoon. Like, that's not an exciting story.
Right. Well, and it's, you know, what you've nailed it too. It's like what I've learned too is the less there's less of Dr. Robert Puff, the freer I am. You know, the more I attach to, you know, my things or my accomplishments or my family, whatever it may be, I will suffer. But the less like, okay, this is what it is today. I mean, someday my mother got Alzheimer's when she was older. So the person I knew wasn't even there at the end, you know, so I may get that too. I don't know. But none of those things matter. And when you don't need those things, when you're free, whether you have, you know, your whole family with you, or you can imagine yourself living in a cave in the Himalayas, which I've been to. And, you know, we've done studies on those men. and women, and we can put electrodes on their brain, and we know which part of the brain is most active when people are truly peaceful and happy, and they shoot it off the chart. So how do they do that? Because
They stay in the now.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. So we can do that in this life too. I've learned to quiet my mind a whole lot too. It's work, but it's worth it. And I think one of the things I believe, and so this is kind of more of a spiritual show. I'm going to talk about it here if I may, and I will go out to my audience too. So they're going to hear things I don't usually talk about in my podcast. But I really believe that we are very spiritual beings, and that we are on a very long journey. But every time we come to Earth, every time we take an incarnation, it really matters. It's an opportunity to do awesome. And if we don't do awesome, we're going to come back, and we're going to come back, and we're going to come back. You know why? There are so many ways we can get it right, particularly now with so much information out there. Why not really just get it right and do it right? Because it is very possible. No one is exempt from having an amazing life, but it just takes work. We have to work at it. So that's what I encourage people to do. And I think if they work at it, they can really go amazingly well. But it takes work. You have to commit to this. Like anything in life, you want to be a beautiful pianist, you have to really work at it. If you want to be a beautiful soul, it is a lot of work. It's a lot of effort, but it's worth it. And the benefits of it are, sooner or later, I believe we're all going to get there. We're going to reach a point where we say, we're done. I'm done. I'm not coming back anymore. I'm going to work on it this time. Why not do it this life?
And I love that. And I want to just say, like, you don't be upset with death, because death is just part of the process. My dad said he was always theorizing and creating philosophies. And he was always blowing our minds with these philosophies. But this one of the latest ones he said was, I figured out the cause of death. And we're like on pins and needles. It's life. You're born and that causes death.
Right. It's true.
And so it's a cycle. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important for us to be in the moment. My dad was very much about being in the moment. Same thing. Be in the moment. And also like realize it's here's another one that was the latest one. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about us. And I think if we can shift our minds into that us space, we can realize that we're all here to work together. We're all here to teach each other. And we're growing through the lessons. We're growing through the difficult moments. We're growing through those difficult times, and there's always forgiveness. There's always the possibility for forgiveness, for compassion, for coming back together. I will say that if your audience is not familiar with my story and they read my book, Awakening to Me, they will see the journey that I went on to become the person I am right now from where I was. And it starts at rock bottom. I hurt my family with my behaviors. I hurt my family with how I acted. And I hurt my ex-husband. I hurt a lot of people in my life, my dad. And this past week, after he died, because of the work that we've all done with each other, the forgiveness, the compassion, the work I've done on myself, we were all gathered around my dad in the hospital after he passed. My ex-husband was there, my mom, my brothers, my family, all holding hands, laughing, sharing stories about my dad. And that's the kind of life that you can have with your family when you can forgive and you can move forward and realize that this was a lesson. You were in Earth School, and you're having the lesson on, mental health and childhood abuse, and come through it to the other side and forgive and be there for your family with an open heart. You went through the lesson of a difficult marriage. But that person, my ex-husband, is still in the room because he viewed my dad like a dad, and he had a right to be there. And his sons wanted him there, and I wanted him there. And that's what you can come to, is this place of forgiveness. Like, life sets you up for suffering. There's no doubt. Life sets you up for challenge, but you can come back to love. That's your work.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but do you know the hard? I know you know the answer, but for your audience, the hardest person for us to forgive is ourselves.
True.
People can do all kinds of things to us, and we can get over that. We can be mad about it, but we are very, very hard on ourselves. And so, as much as we're kind of learning to love others, we do have to learn to love ourselves too. And what I like to do is this. I think it's the truth. I think it's simple, and I think if we remember it, it's really well. Why did I do what I did? Because of my conditionings. Whose fault is it? The conditioning's fault. If I change the conditioning, I'll change the behavior. But beating myself up is reinforcing the conditioning. So if I want to stop doing it, I have to stop beating myself up. So it is conditioning that causes it. If you want to blame someone, blame the conditioning. And if you want to change it, you do have to change the conditioning, which you're doing right now by listening to, Carrie and me. So we can change anything, but it's work. And the biggest thing, again, the thing I really want to warn you that if you're numbing yourself, you're probably not going to get better. So you need to say, okay, this is kind of like going to the gym, if you're a couch 300-pound couch potato and you go to the gym, the first few times are going to hurt, right? Correct. And this is the same way. So the first 2 times you start opening yourself up to this, it's like not a lot of fun, like Carrie and I are very used to feeling our emotions. We do it for a living. It's easy for us, but for you, you're not used to it. So, it's going to take some time, but with time, you will get used to it. It's kind of the way I eat too. I eat very healthy. I mean, most people would be like disgusted by the way I eat. But I love the way I eat. I'm super used to it. And the way you eat makes me sick, if I eat the way, most people eat. So we get used to things. We just are creatures of habit. So put in good habits versus bad habits. Most people tend to have bad habits, particularly because of the numbing, because it's like that short-term gain. It's like, this is just an analogy, but it's a simple one. Most people, when they're younger, most kids say, I want to make a lot of money. They think it's a very natural thing for people to want to do. And so they say, okay, well, the simple solution is, well, what profession makes the most? The best profession that makes the most is surgeons. They tend to make the most as a group. I mean, the people make more than surgeons, but as a group, they make the most. So why doesn't everyone just become a surgeon? Because it's hard. You got to go to school, you got to do well in school, you got to go to, a residency, and then you have to do 5 to 7 years of this crazy internship, and so they don't do it. And so what they rather do is they'd rather just get that first job so they can buy the car. And only 30% of people finish college. So that means, 70% are just getting that first job. Again, it's not a criticism. It's just the fact that we typically like immediate gratification.
Yes.
And immediate gratification is the path of suffering.
It is, because it doesn't happen like that. It happens in layers.
It does. It's hard work. That's your butterfly analogy. It is
You're a butterfly.
It's
but,
work.
You can hide the vegetables in the mash,
At first.
You can hide the vegetables in the mash, You can do a little bit of work, like eating your vegetables. You really like mashed potatoes. I love mashed potatoes. I put mine like all goofy with all just hide the vegetables in the mash, and then follow it with dessert, So it doesn't have to be so hard. No,
and that's another truism too. It's kind of like, again, using that analogy of getting in shape. Again, that metaphor person is like a 300-pound couch potato. I'm sure it's not going to have them go out and run a marathon, but I will have them start walking around the block, then 2 blocks, then 4 blocks, then a mile, to the point they can run a marathon. And we're like that. So today, if you do nothing spiritual, nothing, emotionally good for yourself, start. Start by listening to every, episode of Carrie's podcast. Really learn about what works. Spend a half an hour a day every day, and then start maybe meditating. Start going to the retreats. All the things out there. You're going to learn all the things that work. But once you start doing them, what you find, you reach a point where that's pretty much what you're doing. Your whole life's going to look very much this way. Every aspect of it, even everything will matter in the end. So you work in that direction. But as you work in that direction, it does create an incredibly beautiful life that, like your father so wisely said, but you can only live it in the here and now. So all you have is here and now. That's it.
In the now, right now.
Yep.
You can't grab it. You can't grab it because it's now. It's flowing in the now.
That's it. You learn to live in the now. Yep.
You learn to live in the now. And it also doesn't have to take forever. I want people to know that because I was in psychotherapy for probably 25 years, trying to fix me. And this path is magical. You'll find your own path. There's multiple ways in, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. There's multiple ways in and it doesn't look the way you think it's going to look.
But I would, open. Yeah. And this one I would ask you to do what I did, and it worked for me. I look at the person that's helping you and say, okay, are they doing a whole lot better than me? And if they're not, then you got to say, maybe I should find a teacher who is. Because I think you want to have a teacher that's doing better than you. Like what I found in the psych world, there are a lot of very disturbed people in the psych world. I'm not trying to judge them, but there are. They're like, "Ooh, your life is putrid." So it's like, you have good, you may have good ideas, but you're not living it. So make sure the person you're working with is you like the way their life is going, and you think, yeah. And again, it's not to judge. It's more in the sense of is their life going well, something that you'd want to emulate? Because you don't want to go with someone who's giving you good advice is not taking it. They say, start meditating and they never meditate, and find someone who meditates, but it's important to, find good teachers along the way and listen to your heart. The universe will always be guiding you, always be telling you where to go next. And then,
yeah, it's just baby steps. I mean, you start taking those first steps. I got to say, like, the healing over the last 6 years, I mean, leaving my ex-husband, leaving a 20-year relationship, total breakdown with my parents. Like, we were not speaking 5 years ago. I mean, and really painful stuff, right? And I kept stepping into the path. I kept stepping in with teachers and doing the work. And now, I mean, it's so full, like even my dad passing. So it's possible. It doesn't take as long as you think it's going to take. It's kind of like Harrison Ford, like he's got to like take that first step and he's not sure there's anything there to hold him. And then he's like, oh man, okay, well, I got to get to the other side. They said there's something here. So he takes a step, and it's only looking backwards he sees that there was a bridge for him. And I think it's the same way with this work. The faith comes first, and then you see. But most people have it backwards. They want to see first before they believe, but it's the opposite. You just got to have tiny little itty bitty pebble size of belief, just like the tiniest pebble. And that'll grow into way more proof once you get through that little piece. But you do have to step off the.
Yeah, and
trust.
And think everything, if I'm correct, everything matters. So, like when you come home tonight, what do you watch on TV? When you have conversations at work, what are they about? When you're listening to the radio, what is it on? When you particularly, the main thing you have to watch is what are the thoughts in your head? If you're thinking about the anger you're holding towards someone, you just keep ruminating on that. That's where you're going to go.
That's going to fill up more ink.
Yeah, versus if you say, okay, as I'm driving, wow, that's a beautiful flower I see over there. That's a beautiful tree. Oh, that bird's nice. Or, call up a friend and just talk about, it's a lot of living in the present.
And breathing.
And breathing, just being present. A lot of kind of living what I call a meditative life. Meditation, you learn to quiet your mind. While you're meditating, it's really learning to quiet your mind while you're living. And when you do that, life becomes pretty amazing.
So the last thing the breathing part and staying present, it's hard to do that when your mind's going 1,000. I used to have one of those brains. Mm-hmm. Whew. That's a lot of suffering. You just don't realize it.
It is.
It's painful. Well. Having gotten out of that space, I go, wow, how did I ever survive? Mm-hmm. But Heart Math has great studies about it. So science nerds will love that website. And you can go and look up on heartmath.org, and it talks about why it works. And they have some great breathing techniques. Breathe into your heart, open things up, and it really helps you stay present and out of those thought tunnels in your mind, which are going to lead you down to more black ink. So we don't want that. We want to grow and expand.
Right.
So, well, great. Wonderful. So happiness podcast. Is there, they go to iTunes and subscribe and.
Yeah, it's everywhere. I mean, it's on all the sites, so everyone has it, but it's happinesspodcast.org is a website. So if you want to, keep up with what I'm doing, because I do a lot of things besides that, but that's a good, you can subscribe to newsletter there. But I create a new one every week. It's like 140 episodes. So I've been doing it for 6-7 years now. So
that's amazing. What about do you do retreats and things like that?
Yeah, I do all kinds of things. So that's why, again, it's just good to probably subscribe to the newsletter. And hopefully, I love meeting people. That's one of my favorite things to do. But we can really believe we can all have this amazing lives, but the only person keeping it from us is us. So if we get that, not our job, not our marriage, not our kids, not, the childhood we came from, it's us. If we just begin to make changes, we can truly have beautiful life. We just got to be careful about numbing. It's easy to numb. So.
Yeah, the numbing stuff. Well, I'm excited. I think I told you I'm heading out there with the message Skills Not Pills. And it's not about shaming anybody. It's not about that. I was on the pills for a long time myself. And it's really more about is these skills. I'm advocating the healing that I received was when I learned how to use these skills, personal life skills, the bookends, right. The stuff and everybody's skills are going to be different. I love what you say, like your path is unique. And so I've got skills to share, but there's lots of people with skills to share, and it doesn't really matter whose skills work for you. Just, get out there, learn, cultivate your own, but to start developing inner resiliency that will help you navigate life's challenges so that you're not kind of like bobbing at the surface and needing like you need to take a pill to make it okay, but getting some depth. And when you cultivate those strong, like those core, I love your workout idea. When you get core strength on the inside, spiritually, it's the same as when you have core strength in your body. You can really accomplish a lot, and you can be much more resilient through life's curveballs, so to speak. I definitely didn't know my dad was going to die last week,
Oh, that's a big deal. Yeah.
But we had laughter right around his bedside because we'd said everything we needed to say to him. For every time I saw him, I said everything I needed to say.
He sounds like a beautiful soul.
He's beautiful. Soul. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Poppy Lonsby.
Yeah, I'm sure he's around.
He is. He's been here. Are you kidding?
Yeah, I'm sure he is. Yeah, I believe that. So
yeah,
I look forward to meeting them.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you, everybody. So for my audience, this was like very beautiful and blessed, and hopefully for your audience, they're not freaked out and running for the hills yet. It's okay. I promise you. We welcome you. We love you. And we just send you so many blessings. And we like to end all the broadcasts with kisses. So I'm going to kiss everybody. And here he comes. See you next time. Bye.